Sean, thank you so much. I am so grateful for that wonderful introduction of both Sia and I, and most importantly, this exciting initiative for Girl Up. And in fact, I'm joined here today by Sia. And Sia, I'm really looking forward to having a conversation about the amazing things that Girl Up is doing in the girls' leadership space. So to kick us off, could you share a little bit more about Girl Up's thoughts and how they see leadership?
Sure, Julie, and thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here with you, and this is one of my favorite topics. So the short answer to how Girl Up thinks about leadership is that leadership is fundamental to Girl Up. It's at the heart of what we're doing. And our focus on girls' leadership and youth leadership is what is behind our movement building for social change and for social justice. And just to give you a little bit of context, Julie, just 2 weeks ago, the global community came together at the United Nations Generation Equality Forum in Paris and pledged over $40 billion to work on gender equality, including strengthening girls' and women's leadership. And these commitments came 25 years after the landmark Women's Conference in Beijing in 1995. So all that to say, it was a long time coming. Girl Up is ahead of the game. For the past decade, Girl Up has been consistently investing in girls' leadership. And not just that, but we recognize that our youth leaders need different kinds of skills and supports and opportunities to fulfill their potential and effectively advocate for gender equality and for social justice. So we have created a leadership framework that looks at these different types of leadership skills, qualities, and opportunities, and it has 3 pillars. And the first one is leader of self, which focuses on personal leadership identity, skills, and style. So really strengthening that inner individual core of leadership. And the second pillar is leader of peers, which focuses on how to lead others in an inclusive and inspiring way. And we know that this is what Girl Up leaders have been doing in the clubs for the past decade, and teaching us along the way. And the final pillar of leadership is leader of change, which focuses on how to apply all those skills effectively to advocacy and to changing the world. So we are now integrating this framework into all of our programming. And as you know, Julie, in partnership with you, we're developing our new leadership curriculum. And I would love to hear from you as a member of the board, a longtime supporter of Girl Up and an expert in girls' leadership. What do you think is significant and unique about Girl Up's commitment and approach to girls' leadership and our new curriculum?
Yes, well, I'm going to have to do my best to keep this short and just give the Cliff Notes version, because I could literally talk for hours about how amazing this initiative is. And it starts really, Sia, with what you just shared with our wonderful guest here today. And that is this 3-part model. And it's actually this idea of leader of self, leader of peers, leader of change. That is actually rooted in over 30 years of research and study about not just how to teach about leadership, but actually how do you develop and teach others to see themselves as leaders. And as we continue more in this conversation, we'll talk more about, as we know, that important idea of leader identity. So that evidence-based piece that is the foundation of this curriculum and a lot of Girl Up programming is at the heart, and then it just compounds. So as you know, I've been working with your design team. They're doing an extraordinary job. What I love about this curriculum, it's the first, and I've been in the girls space for, 20 years now. I'm dating myself, but worked with many organizations. Literally, what Girl Up is doing with this evidence-based leader curriculum that is being scaled globally to help girls around the world is the first initiative of its kind that I've ever seen. So Girl Up literally is blazing this trail. Just for context, so I can geek out sometimes because I love my backgrounds in applied neuroscience and brain-based learning. What I love about the curriculum is it's not just a curriculum. It doesn't teach girls just about leadership. It teaches them to see themselves as leaders using evidence-based instructional exercises and materials. Just for one idea, it uses mindset science and wise intervention. So for our partners and investors out there watching today, I just want you to know one of the exercises for shared context is backed by over 190 published studies. And it actually is shown in the research to have positive outcomes on even health and academics 3 years later, after this one-time exercise that's part of the curriculum. And the curriculum isn't just one exercise, it's many exercises and experiential activities that allow girls to grow on their leadership journey. And then I think the third thing I want to share, there's so many, this idea that as Girl Up, you really lead the way in For Girls by Girls. This was championed by the girls. So this isn't a top-down initiative that we're trying to give girls what we think that they need. What I love in my conversations with the girls themselves and your design team is the girls themselves said, hey, Girl Up is the best in the world at helping us become change agents and change makers. And oh, we also want some extra support in understanding how do we lead our peers? How do we know what we stand for? So this initiative was born out of what girls themselves said that they wanted. And of course, Girl Up doesn't do anything halfway. They decided to make this, if they're going to do it, let's make it world class. Let's make it evidence-based and rigorous and actually make sure girls get the outcomes that they want.
That's amazing, Julie. We are all about evidence-based, linking to best practice, and also making impact. And we're also about measuring impact as well.
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize that that's part of the evidence-based piece that I admire so much about Girl Up's initiative. Could you talk a little bit more about the Girls Leadership Index?
Sure, I can. And first to say, Julie, often we'll recognize a good leader, but we can't actually put our finger on what it is that makes them so good or so effective. And so what our Girls Leadership Index does is that it actually hones in on different qualities and skills of leadership. So we identify them, and we can also measure them and measure the growth of our leaders as they go through our programming. So the Girls Leadership Index is a tool that Girl Up has developed, and it includes measurable skills and qualities for each of the 3 pillars in our model of leadership. So for example, for leader of self, we can measure self-awareness, self-compassion, personal responsibility. For our leader of peers, we're looking at measuring empathy, inclusive leadership, and collaboration. And for leader of change, we're looking at how our leaders are strengthening their skills in creative problem solving, critical thinking, and overall making impact through their activism. So as we're rolling out this amazing curriculum that you're helping us with and integrating the leadership model into all of our programming, we'll be able to use the Girls Leadership Index to measure the progress of our young leaders as they build and flex and use those leadership muscles in all 3 areas. And this is really going to help us understand our impact and continue to strengthen our programming as we move forward. And it'll also offer the field an unprecedented database and tool to inform and measure leadership development and impact.
Yes. And again, another way Girl Up is being trailblazing in this sense, because really taking a lot of these amazing, validated, reliable instruments and then working with experts to make it fit what do girls need to really develop those leadership skills and competencies, that leader identity. Again, the first time this has ever been done. And so what a contribution to Girl Up girls, but also the space of girls leadership worldwide, because it's never been done. And this is going to be a valuable tool to really see the power of Girl Up programming and also show the world what girls actually want and need as leaders.
That's right. That's right. And Julie, from measuring impact at the big program level, I'd like to go back now to making impact at the individual level. And I was wondering if we could focus a little bit on our leader of self pillar and why it's important for young leaders to begin by building that leader of self skill.
Absolutely. And actually, it's interesting. A lot of times when we talk to girls about what is leadership, they will share the very socially conditioned idea that leadership means you have to stand behind a podium and, you have to create something or tell a team what to do. And that can be an important part of leadership, as we know. We also know, though, that not all girls feel comfortable or confident enough to do that. And that we also know girls can lead from the front of the room, they can lead from the back of the room, or they can lead walking alongside someone who needs help. So that idea of leader of self really says that the most important person that we all lead is ourselves. And girls can understand that leadership actually isn't a title or position. Leadership comes from authentically being who you are and developing your skills and ability in service to something bigger than just yourself. And that may be standing behind a podium and making sure your voice is heard, or that may be raising money for underserved young women, or that may be creating a campaign for gender equality or awareness about what's going on in the world in a respective area that they're passionate about. So this idea of starting with leader of self is actually really groundbreaking for a number of reasons. One, it allows girls of any background, of any level of experience to see themselves as a leader. And not to, again, geek out too much on the research, but what research from Doerr Institute for New Leaders at Rice University has found is that leader identity is the single most important factor in allowing a young person to express leadership skills and abilities. So for example, so many girls, not in Girl Up, but outside of Girl Up, don't see themselves as leaders. And even if they're the best, most competent public speaker in the world, or even if they're incredibly capable of petitioning and writing legislation, they won't take action on those skills and abilities unless they see themselves and personally identify as a leader. So starting off at a place where we help every girl see that she actually is a leader, and it's up to her to decide how she wants to express that, it is really powerful. We start with mindset first, and then jump into skill set, and then that changes the world. So this idea of leader of self is one of the most important things that we can do for any young woman.
It's fantastic, Julie, that everyone can start from themselves and everyone can be a leader is really what I'm hearing. And the idea that the most important person you lead is yourself is just a great reminder for leaders of all ages, I think, let alone young leaders.
Yeah, and I think this idea of giving girls the opportunity to get to know who they are. What are their core values? What do they care about? How do they overcome self-doubt? How do they overcome imposter syndrome? These are all skill sets that really every girl deserves to have. And without the opportunity to learn about those skills and learn who they are, it doesn't normally just happen organically. Research shows that if a student doesn't do evidence-based leader development, they actually don't grow a lot of times in their leadership skills and capabilities. We wouldn't expect students to take math and science or not take math and science and automatically know those skills, but we shouldn't assume that students will just automatically, by nature of a high school experience, know how to be leaders. That's where Girl Up comes in. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the great work that you're doing. And in fact, what I love about this is that this initiative is the first, literally global effort to bring evidence-based leader development to girls around the world. And I love the focus on making sure that it incorporates and includes girls of all different backgrounds. Could you talk a little bit more about the curriculum's global focus and reaching girls around the world and diversity?
Yes, thanks, Julie. That's such an important point. And it's really a commitment that we have at Girl Up that, like our movement, which is wholly inclusive and global, we want to create a curriculum that's relevant across the world. And in some ways, as you've already said, this curriculum already reflects the diversity of our movement. It's been informed by our youth leaders, both in terms of direct demands, asks, feedback, and insight, but also based on what they've taught us from their advocacy and activism over the past decade with their clubs. So we have been consulting them to ensure that the programming and the curriculum is relevant, that it's inclusive. We want to make sure that they see themselves reflected in the curriculum as well. So as you know, we're already in 129 countries around the world, growing every day. And so we want to make sure that that reflects that reality and our curriculum reflects the reality. As you said, we're linked to best practice and evidence. We know that this works. We're using what's been proven, and then it's just further enriched by the feedback from our young leaders. We're also working to make sure that the curriculum is as accessible as possible, both in terms of digital access, in-person opportunities, language and other accessibility options, and making sure that it can be adapted for use in different contexts. So we're very excited about that. As I said, the goal is to really create a curriculum for everyone. And I'm excited that later in this session, we'll be hearing directly from some of our youth leaders who are already exercising some of these skills. Before we go, Julie, I had a question for you. If you were to use just 1 or 2 words to describe Girl Up's approach to leadership, what would that be?
Oh, just 1 or 2 words. That's going to be especially challenging as a public or professional speaker. I want to say lots of words, and it would be well represented. I think I think of extraordinary. I think of amazing. I think of groundbreaking. I think if I were to choose one word, I'd probably use a word I used earlier, and that is trailblazing. You know, for a long time, and again, we're talking about just the general approaches to leader development for young people and girls. It was this idea, it happens organically, or they just learn to be leaders by nature of growing up. Well, Girl Up from the very beginning was like, no, we want to build our girls into change agents and change makers and let their voices be heard. And they've given girls so many opportunities to do that. And I think what's beautiful about the curriculum is it's reinforcing and supporting that amazing trailblazing work that Girl Up has been doing for over 10 years, and just continuing to enhance and support our girls in even deeper and profound ways on a self-leadership and peer leadership level. So trailblazing is true. Evidence-based leader development that is also rigorously measured and has really focused on what girls need most. That's trailblazing. And so it's an honor, Sia, to be part of this trailblazing work with you, with your team, and with Girl Up. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm so excited for everyone here today to hear about this. This is really one of the first times that this is being shared about from Girl Up. So it is very exciting trailblazing news.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was more than 1 word, but I will take it. And I'm so excited. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and for your partnership in this really, really exciting endeavor. Back to you, Sean.